monkey on us and try to solve your problems. All roads go someplace, and all roads just mean more traffic. We sit out there hour after hour after hour and watch the traffic go up Seward Street into town. Find a solution. The old timers are all gone. John Jones, the Skolnicks, the Garbers, the Graffs, the Glaces, Clint Works, Augie Bush, the Rossmeyers. We shouldn't have to be the solution to this development. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? Seeing none, thank you. Anyone else wish to speak tonight on this item? Jonathan, do you look like you're itching to say something.
Thank you, Mayor. Jonathan Jank, with the Seward County Chamber and Development Partnership, 616 Bradford here in town. Before I begin my remarks, I want to share copies of 4 letters of support articulating the need for additional housing in Seward from employers needing to increase their workforce needs moving forward. The employers include Concordia University, Hughes Brothers, Tenneco, and PetSource, which represent well over 1,000 employees between them. I want to share some data and feedback we have regarding housing needs identified in Seward County. Our organization has approximately 280 public and private sector members, and we have heard the need for additional housing across industries in our county. A local employer shared with us recently that they had to hire and spend a significant figure on contract workers over the past year because there is a worker shortage in our county. Employers need to be able to promote Seward as a destination to work and live. In 2019, our organization commissioned an in-depth housing study for the county. The study determined that the city of Seward will need to add 242 new housing units to meet demand by 2024. So it's a 5-year outlook from 2019 to 24. These units will require an estimated 61 acres of land. The proposed subdivision before you is going to help potentially meet a portion of this demand as Seward continues to grow. This type of housing will allow families within Seward to potentially grow into these homes, and they'll be able to hopefully release starter homes, as Mr. Benish had mentioned, and that would be available, of course, for first-time home buyers. And according to this study, 3+ bedroom units, which we would anticipate much of this development to be, are the most needed housing types for the Seward workforce population. Diversification of housing in Seward is going to drive continued consumer interest in our community, which will help support our local businesses to grow. And so I appreciate the consideration for this subdivision and would be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Jonathan. Any questions for Jonathan? Seeing none, thank you.
Thank you.
Unless there's anyone else that would like to speak this evening?
I have one question for Jonathan.
Yes, Jonathan, don't go anywhere.
Yep.
So Jonathan, with employers, with us in the rail campus, we have a lot of inquiries in that. Can you kind of cover like what levels of employment that prospective purchasers of that land are looking for, like employee-wise,
Right.
moving forward in the future?
Of course, depends on the industry. We have a targeted industry study that really has analyzed our local workforce, sort of what our assets are locally and where we can draw Quick note that our 3 largest employers in the county, Hughes Brothers, Concordia, Tenneco, they pull from 20 counties to fill our full-time positions, so we can draw pretty well for our full-time workforce. Within those industries, at the end of the day, we're ag and manufacturing in our county, and so really sort of our sweet spot is ag manufacturing. What we've realized is we have projects that will come into the state that are very large employers, hundreds of employees, but really our targets are right around that pet source level, 100 employees, and of course they're expanding an additional 80, and that's great. I think that is sort of that smart growth that we're talking about. And so the goal is to continue to slowly but surely build that out over time, and I think you can actually see in the comp plan approximately half of the rail campus to be anticipated over the next 10 to 15 years, and then continue to grow that out over the 300-acre campus.
And so, with those prospective employers, employment's kind of one of their main concerns coming in, whether we're able to house the workforce or have workforce.
Absolutely. Every employer, when we have a chance for a site visit, asks what is your housing. When we do a community tour, we show them where we're growing. Some of the questions are, what types of diverse housing are you building? And clearly, this, for example, I think opens up some other housing as well as the different housing lot sizes. I think that brings diversification into the market, which is needed to help support the local employers and potentially future employers.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions for Jonathan? Seeing none, thank you, Jonathan.
Thanks.
Does anyone else wishes to speak from the public? We would close the public comment portion.
I like to yield my time to Marcia.
You can't yield your time. So with that, we'll go ahead and close the public comment portion of the public hearing and return to the council for any other comments or questions. Any other comments or questions from the council on this item?
I think the hardest part for us is there is demand, workforce, housing, we're growing. The schools can handle this and stuff like that. So the topic is whether or not we let this development happen. But on the solution end of it, there's a lot of issues that the city needs to, we're aware of them. We just need to find a solution and make the solution happen so that it's a win-win situation for everybody. And I think we really need to get on sooner than later. Either there's any other agenda items that, whatever, I'll make it, that we need to really focus on where we're moving to find a better solution for East Seward Street, as well as East Seward Street East, and getting that finished, and really focusing on taking care of some of these roads that are on our comp plan for this area, whether it be Prairie Flags entrance or whatever, and really get that moving. Because we can't grow if we don't have the proper flow, and then in that, being able to, maybe you do it so that you can't turn onto 34 going outside of Columbia, and when you come in, you can only go onto First Street and then up there, so that congested area up there is not by Nancy's house, that it flows a little bit better. We really need to get on that better, whether that's a traffic study or planning and zoning being involved or whatever, but we need to get that ball going faster than this development.
Well, I think there are going to be some things we could do as a city that were discussed tonight as possible solutions, and I don't mean like solutions in the absolute sense, but solutions as to make things better, because it is a tricky, just the geography of this area is tricky to resolve with just a magic wand and say it's all fixed. It's going to be degrees of solutions, and the ones that we can control, which were discussed tonight. I'm expecting the city staff to sit down and kind of formulate what exactly that would look like and bring council proposals for that. The bigger issue as far as the north-south issue is one that the county has to be involved in because it's in the county. And so we can make those proposals or recommendations and have those conversations. And, right now I think the best bet as far as a long-term solution is to be involved in their comprehensive plan review and try and get something like that included in that, and then also have definitive plans to actually do it. I mean, when I first became mayor, we had one, well, Sid, you remember, we had 1 and 6 year plans, and was it Maple, or no, what was the Cedar? There is the road at the bottom of 15 that was on there for
Cedar.
how many years?
30, I think.
Yeah, it was in the 1 and 6 year plan for 30 or 40 years.
a long time.
That's not really a 1 and 6 year plan. And so when these types of plans are developed, you know, we wanna make sure that if you put it on there, the public is expecting something to happen in the next 1 to 6 years. Hence the name of the plan. And so that's something that we worked on internally, to make sure that the plan reflected what the actual, intent was. Not just to put something on there to appease a neighborhood or someone, and so they think that something's gonna happen when nothing ever did. By the way, we did get that paved, right, Sid? Eventually. And so I think with having discussions with the county as far as what their plan looks like and what we can do maybe to articulate the need, and you know, obviously, the liaison commissioner's here tonight, I would hope he would take that back, right?
Ironically, we spoke a little bit about this today in
Yeah.
our meeting where we looked at R1 and 6.
Mm-hmm.
We tabled R1 and 6 so that we could amend it with a couple of projects. So, I will have some takeaways here.
Good.
And, I look forward to a meeting with, Administrator Butcher and your highway people. Let's put it together.
Yeah.
I'm all for it.
So that, I think that's, so there are, to kind of separate like the solutions, there are some local ones that we can do within the city that can be proposed to the council, and then there's the bigger, longer term solutions, but, you know, those types of projects take years, not just to engineer and to build, but years to get the financing, so those long-term solutions aren't gonna happen overnight, but I think there are some things you can do to alleviate some of the pressure that neighborhood is, and that street is currently experiencing. Greg, do you wanna add anything to that?
No, I think working with the county and with Daryl and having some members of our planning commission attend the county planning commission to start those discussions is good. Mike can come up with all kinds of solutions for this, and we can propose those, and we can do those very quickly. We can turn some of that around so that you have them in your hand while you review options on March 15th. Some of them will take time and at considerable cost, but we can give you options.
Well, it doesn't sound like there's anybody that lives around there that is opposed to the development. I mean, you guys wanna see growth and you guys are excited about the growth of Seward. It's the impact that it's gonna do to their neighborhoods, their roads. 100-year-old houses, y'all are living in one too, and I live on a busy brick street too. I get it, I understand. Traffic is crazy down South Columbia where I live. And so I get their concern as far as what does that do long term? And if for 28 years we're continuously having to come back here and saying, hey guys, did you forget about us? Hey guys, did you forget about us? Like, we need to hold ourselves accountable and making sure that we're doing what needs to be done to find a better solution, so we don't have people mad at us.
You're in the wrong game. That's a different meeting.
No, I'm not.
That's a different meeting, that's not this one. So, yes, sir.
I was talking to Jonathan today, and of course, he hasn't been, I've been around longer than he has, but I think this is the single largest development that I've ever seen come before us. And it may be the single largest development that Seward has ever done. And there's some people that, I mean, John, you've been here longer than me, but, the takeaway I had last night from the meeting is similar to tonight. I don't, like you said, Alyssa, I don't think there's anybody who doesn't want it to happen. But people just want it to happen in the right way and the smart way going forward, because it is gonna be eventually, even though it's gonna be done in phases, it's gonna be a big deal. And, at last night's meeting, I liked one of the commissioners proposed tabling it for 45 days, basically until there was a plan in place. And the concerns I have going forward with it are a few things. I'm a little concerned about the density of it. Bob, I know when you did Shoal Creek earlier, I had some concerns about the density up there. My wife and I walk around town all the time. I still don't like how close some of the houses are. I don't like the short setbacks in the R3. And I'm assuming this looks like a tall R3, correct?
That's correct.
Most of the lots I see are around 65 feet wide. I see a few 75s and a few 80s. So when Dr. Wallman was talking about the mix, yeah, I see a few bigger ones sprinkled in there. I would like to see less lots. That's just my personal preference. As far as the way neighborhoods look, I don't like going down neighborhoods where you have, unless you're right in front of the house, it looks like a whole, like a storage unit, because all you see is garages. And then the houses appear to be an afterthought. I'm an aesthetics guy, I'm an artist, so that's just my personal pet peeve. I like the larger lots because you can stretch out the house a little better, you can set it back. The hydrology part of it, like somebody said, very few of us are engineers in the room, so I look at the topographical map, doesn't mean anything to me. But in my experience on the council, at this phase of almost every project, everything is gonna work fine. And it's stamped by an engineer, and then lo and behold, it either doesn't get graded right, or the culverts that are supposed to be put in aren't put in. Like, to err on the side of caution, I would wanna see, like Mike, put on his engineering hat and just make everything bigger, even than what the engineering firm I have concerns about the drainage of it. But my biggest concerns are with the traffic. I would like to see, and I'm gonna propose that we table it for a certain amount of time, only not because I'm against it, but because I think by tabling it, it would put an onus upon us, council and administration, to actually light the fire, whether it's under the county, whether it's under ourselves, to really move finally on some sort of concrete proposal on East Seward Street. Some sort of concrete proposal, even if it is something that's stretched out 10 years for a north-south corridor. And I understand, we have other entities we have to work with, but it can be done. And with a project of this magnitude, I was hoping that what would come to us would also come along with some other more concrete decisions that were like, well, we talked to the county and this is what they're gonna do. This is what we would wanna do on East Seward, a little bit more solid. So I'm hesitant about just going forward right now. There was a comment made at the meeting last night to the effect, and I don't remember exactly, like, well, sometimes you have to create the problem and then fix it later. Well, I don't think that's a good way to do things. And especially when we're planning the future growth of the city, it's not the way to do things. And as far as the state goes, I've been there long enough to understand how they are to deal with. But I guess I would really like to see something in paper, some sort of evidence that the state of Nebraska was contacted, like an actual conversation either by you, Greg, Bob, by you. I've heard comments like, oh, they do this, they do that, but Greg, even tonight, you said you found out at a recent meeting that all of a sudden a rule that you thought existed didn't exist. But I wanna see something that says, yeah, we've already talked to the state and they told us, no, we cannot put another entrance on here. So those are my main issues, is we need to be thinking long-term, not just talking about it, but I think if we could table this for 45 days, I don't think it would destroy Bob's timeline, but it would give us a real deadline to say, okay, by the time we talk about this again, we're gonna have this commitment from the county, this yes or no from the state, and this is what we're doing with East Seward Street to address the potential problems here. So, Mayor, at some point, I'm gonna make that motion, but I wanna let more discussion happen.
We either make the motion, I can still have more discussion.
I'll make it right now. I make a motion that we table this decision for 45 days. And we task Greg with organizing, the communication with the county, with the state, and amongst ourselves, decide what we're gonna do with East Stewart Street.
Is that your motion?
That's my motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second, and now we have further discussion.
I guess my concerns are, this is not, we should be clear with ourselves, this is not workforce housing, and we are definitely in need of workforce housing. I am concerned that we are building a big development up by the golf course that's just, it's not finished, and we have a lot of housing coming in there. And I know we need 300 and something odd housing by 2030. I do understand that, it's just I don't know that we need them all at once, so that's a concern that we're just building too much at one time. Let the other lots get built and sold, and then continue to add on is part of my concern. I'm very concerned about Seward Street. I think we need to, do some short-term mitigation that we just talked about, of whether it's signage or whatever it is, to take some pressure off during construction period. And then, of course, we've gotta address, Sid said, we've gotta address the long-term traffic plans, and get off square one here and do something about it. I think it's time. My question is, can we do that in 45 days? I mean, it's a start, yeah, but can we come up with something concrete enough that we can all agree on that we're gonna pursue in 45 days, so as not to disrupt his plans
You want 90?
forever? No, not necessarily.
Just 1 second.
It's just, I'm just bringing this up, 45 days goes by pretty quickly when you're talking government entities. We all move kinda slow sometimes. So, those are my concerns. I still wanna hear what everyone else has to say.
I mean, the administration is we'll do the best we can as far as providing you with what you're asking for. I just don't know if it's gonna be satisfactory. I mean, you're gonna get like a list of options, and you're gonna have to decide if that's enough or if that works. And, you know, we can have conversations with the state, and I'm sure Bob probably has too. These types of motions make me nervous, because it's like, we wanna obviously comply if this passes with what you're asking for. It's just, there's a lot of unknowns and uncertainty about what that looks like, because obviously, we're not gonna be able to put a north-south road through in 45 days. But the other options,
That's not what we're asking.
no, but I'm saying the other options we talked about, as far as Third Street, we can have options for you to consider.
Yes,
It's just whether it will be enough, for what you're looking for, but you made some assumptions about Bob's timeline, so let me ask Bob,
Yeah, sorry, I don't
your
need
timeline,
assumptions on
if
your
you could
timeline.
Sure.
explain kind of what your thoughts are.
Absolutely. Well, just a couple responses to your questions. One, lot sizes. We would all love 100-foot wide lots, wouldn't we? I mean, who wouldn't? But I don't wanna pay $120,000 for a 100-foot lot.
What's the average price of these, like the 65 on these?
We don't know yet, but my goal originally was 50,
50,
you know,
yeah.
but with the cost of increases,
Right.
you know, every month we go by is another $8,000 to $9,000. So tabling for 45 days is probably gonna cost me $18,000. So time is, you know, I put a lot of thought and time into this, and that's why we've waited to bring it till we felt perfect. Workforce housing, I don't really wanna get much smaller than what I've shown here.
What would be,
for housing.
what's your cost, what's your lowest cost house?
Right now, I think unfortunately, like 240 plus the lot.
Plus the lot,
Yeah.
okay, so that takes it out of the workforce housing range.
Do we have well, I don't know.
About
Well, but
280-ish.
so, yeah, and so what workforce housing, what this does create is the person that lives down the street in a $150,000 house that wants a 300,000.
Oh, I would agree, except that I think it's gonna create workforce housing opportunities in Lincoln as people move to Seward. So it's not opening up Seward, it's bringing people from Lincoln in.
Okay, yeah. Well, I don't know on that one, but, timing is important. If we lose our spring grading, you know, it could rain the month of April, May. It wasn't that long ago, it rained 29 out of 31 days in May, you know, that happens. If we lose our grading time frame, then we start to say, wait a minute, I don't wanna spend $750,000 on water pipe and sewer pipe if I can't get my paving in. So, cause then I'm paying interest on that. So then you really lose a whole year. You have to delay the project till next year, and now you're talking big money. So, and you know, as we know, things keep going up and up and up, and so the sooner you can lock in, the better. I would prefer, I don't think you can, I mean, the problem with your street is, I didn't create it. Okay, it's existing, it's here. I don't know that I can solve it, and I don't think I should be penalized to solve it, but I would sure help. If they've got other ideas on what I own that I can do to help, I would do them. But that's about the limit that I can do.
Understood, thank you.
I got a question for
Sure.
you, Bob. When did you start this project?
We purchased it last spring, or some, roughly, and then we delayed closing till like November, December. Can't remember the exact
Approximately
date.
8 months you've had this.
Mhm.
And how,
We've been working.
when's the soonest that you talked to planning and zoning, engineering?
Probably last summer,
Last summer.
right?
So definitely 6 months into this,
Oh,
there's been
geez.
communication between administration and a developer, knowing our problems.
Well, you mean the street problems?
Yeah, well, we know our problems,
Yeah.
but yet we're gonna hold up a developer, and we've known about it for 6 months?
Personally, I don't, as a resident of Seward, I live on South Sixth Street. I have 9,500 cars coming by daily from my house. I didn't see this as an issue, as a traffic issue. I saw this as needing our 1% road. Now, time frame wise, I wasn't notified till October 4th, was the first email I've got. It takes 7 weeks for review. We need 15 days review for the city. We need 15 days review for all the utilities, phones, everybody. That got us till, what, December 15th was when we were
When I meant
originally
summer
scheduled.
starting, I meant starting, I apologize, I meant starting with the engineers, we start drawing, we start designing, we do concepts, we start thinking about, so that started last summer. But yeah, we probably didn't, and then we sat down with the city and we
Right,
said,
and,
hey,
starting in November, we sat
what are
down.
the,
And then it got pushed from December to January because of drainage issues that came up. So we've only been dealing with this 90-some days,
Okay.
100 days.
Yeah. I had one, cause we checked on the calendars and all our emails today, I had one meeting and one email from Bob, and he was inquiring about our East Seward project that we had already teed up and started working with the county on. He said, hey, cause he knew then, I didn't know then, but he knew then what he was looking at doing. And he came into my office and said, what is your East Seward project, what are you doing? And I said, we're working with the county, this is the situation with that roadway, it's been in disrepair for a long time, maintenance issues. We're trying to work to make that a concrete roadway all the way out. And he said, oh, okay, well, I'm looking at different developments in town, this is one of the areas I'm looking. And then I didn't hear from Bob, and Tim didn't hear from Bob until right before November, when he was looking to close, to start seeing if he could put a plan together. And that's when we identified the drainage issue was our predominant discussion item.
So your detention ponds then is that a permit through the city, the county, the state, or you don't
None.
even have to have a
There's no
permit on that?
permit.
There's not a permit on that
It's
at
just
all.
part of the plan to address the water runoff issue. But there's not, it's not like a pond, like, it's not like,
No, I
yeah,
know that.
it's just in a detention area, so that, when they're gonna have theirs, and then they're going to presumably acquire the one for the Valley View, that they can then incorporate that. But there's no specific, there's no DEQ or any other permitting for that. It's just
we do
part of the plan.
erosion control.
Yeah,
EQ,
yeah.
That is DEQ.
But all your permits up to this point, you have all your permits and everything like that?
We will get them as soon as we get approval. Like, most of the permits come with final plan.
Oh.
Like, we'll get one for grading, erosion control will be prelim plat, that'll come next, that's the next step.
But you can't get those permits until you have final.
Till you get prelim plat.
So Greg, you mentioned you already had, when we were talking about possible solutions, you already mentioned there's 3 things on the table that we could look at. So those conversations have already started.
They began last summer, and I mean, most of the cast of characters are here. It's true, and we began last summer in a discussion and identifying that project was a couple years out on East Seward Street. And what that meant and the concern to the residents that live there, because they're very concerned about their historic streetscape. And I said, that project is 2 years out, but you need to get in front of the council before that thing is decided what it is, and tell them what you think. and I said, so let's have a meeting. And I invited the council members that represented that area, and we talked about it. And some of the biggest takeaways we took from there was, let's start looking at things we can do like traffic surveillance. And I know I talked to Chief, they've done some, but if you go through and look at our issue with staffing, we've been consistently down a staff member or two. We've had a service member that we don't replace when he leaves. He's been gone on deployment for a year. So a lot of the times we have one person in town on duty. And so it's very hard, but they've tried to do selective enforcement when the traffic committee recommends it, when it's asked for by the council. But it's hard because we gotta cover everything in the city and sometimes there's one person. But then we started looking at localized issues like speed bumps and speed and Joe's conversation about trying to get the truck traffic off and how do we declassify this roadway. I think we've had at least 3 conversations and asked NDOT multiple times, how do we work through the process of declassifying roads, which is not normal, but it's something that we need to do because it doesn't make sense if
Which
you're gonna leave
means
it.
what you designate a residential.
Yes,
as
not a
opposed-
collector.
Not a collector. And there's not a specific answer from the state on that yet?
Mm-mm. It's been, because we want to do the truck one, so we have to declassify to get the truck traffic off because your GPS systems and everything else are going, hey, we're looking for arterials and collectors to try and move traffic because that's what kind of traffic's supposed to move. Well, somebody made the mistake years ago, better or worse, to designate a collector. We gotta fix that. We were trying to designate, like, fix this localized issue, and now things have exacerbated. And come this fall, Bob bought the property from Jones, and now where we are. I think the localized, the temporary ones we can do really easily. I made the joke last night, but I'm like, Bob's Creek, go out there and put up a permanent.
Our Bob,
Yeah, Bob Myers.
not
Bob. We're not gonna make you do it, Bob.
No, we have our own,
We
we have
can
our own
put
Bob.
up-
Bob's getting
Oh,
nervous.
man,
Bob's like, what
what?
signs am I putting up?
We can put up signage and then 3-tier barriers and stuff, and we can get that in a day. And prep a lot of this work temporarily, very quickly. What's the best solution and what do people would like to see as that temporary solution? I think you need to have that conversation. I can tell you that I have a pretty good connection with the Ridge Run people. I have a pretty decent connection with Lindell, this is Lynn. And I know through Marcia, I have a really good connection back to communicate to the East Seward residents that we can get everybody back together, we can sit back down in the basement of the Civic Center, and we can throw out ideas, propose the ones we've talked about, give them a free shot at making, here's your sheet, vote for something. I mean, if you wanna do something quick, you gotta do it, you're gonna have to do it dirty. We can't go through and pay for a $6,000 survey,
So you can do that
scientific.
in 45 days.
Yes, I can get you a temporary solution in
I
2
think,
weeks.
can you do it for the next council meeting? That was my question.
Potentially, yes. But I have to move very quickly, I have to get all the people in the room, I gotta sit them all down, and then they have to understand,
Yeah.
we were tasked with getting a quick answer, we're gonna do a quick response, and we're all gonna live with it,
And that was-
temporarily.
And that was where I was saying before is, you know, I get nervous about these types of motions just because, the quality of, you know, of the action on the administration's part to provide you with those options can vary, you know, and we'll do, you know, Greg will do the best job he can to get you the best quality options. It's just, when you're under the gun, it's has to be sometimes, you know, quick and dirty.
But 45 days should be able to, we gave Carroll K residents plenty of time and information to voice their concerns and to ask us for things. I think we can give Seward Street residents some time, a little extra time to come and help us come up with a solution that they like, or at least we can work with.
Yeah, Carl?
So I'll pass you a question. With this construction on that, when's the earliest you're anticipating people to move into this
Probably
development?
next summer.
So like over a year, year and some months?
Yeah, because if we have finished lots this fall, and build times right now are 8 to 9 months.
Okay, so between now and then, you wouldn't see an increase in traffic from this development at all?
Till next-
In a
maybe
year
next spring or
plus.
summer. Yeah,
So I think that alone, to me, seems like that would be enough time to come up with a solution rather than delaying them. We have a year and plus to come up with those localized solutions rather than putting them behind schedule and coming up with that in the same time frame that we could without delaying them. We're not gonna see that increase for over a year.
Yeah, I guess, Carl, the intent of the delay would be beyond East Seward is to get something more concrete started, especially on the long-term north and south issues. Whatever can happen with the county, just a plan, you know, like,
Now, when you say north-south, are you meaning,
oh, you weren't here, I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
yeah.
Oh, that's right, you came here late.
thanks.
Well, we talked a lot about the big issues, and I won't belabor it, is having to find a north-south option other than Highway 15 and Columbia to get up north, like to Waverly.
Mhm.
And one of them that was talked about was 252nd. And accessing that and working with the county to give this development some access out to 252nd so that could go straight up at least to Bluff.
Or some other road developed up through there.
Or some other road developed through there that's on our comprehensive plan that Greg mailed out today. On that
Yeah.
one, page 52 shows some of the proposed
Right.
roadways.
Yeah.
That's what I'm talking about, the north-south.
Okay.
And I guess that's what I'm, you know, and I would amend my motion if you can get something more concrete earlier than that. I want some kind of pressure on ourselves to say, now we need to sit down with Daryl, and we really need to sit down with the county, or we really need to get serious and say, now this thing is actually gonna happen. To come back to us and say, okay, guys, this is what we've started, this is what most likely is gonna happen, we've contacted this, you know, the county, they've verbally committed to this, just something, but right now I feel like we don't have the long-term plan. So that's my rationale
Okay.
for the tabling of it for a period. Doesn't have to be 45 days, it could be 30. Just to get some impetus so that we have something back. I would just feel better about that with such a big development, to know that there's other plans rolling, not completed, not finalized, but at least started.
Okay, yeah, no, thanks for clarifying that, because as I was just measuring it out, it seems, based on everything on Google Maps, and take it for what it's worth, it's shorter actually to go out to the highway and up. You run into one stop sign and that's it, and you're turning right on Columbia at this point, rather than going through a T intersection, a roundabout, then the curves, and then a stop sign.
Right.
So
So in
that,
people's brains, it's a path of least resistance.
right, so that's why, to me, I don't necessarily see this being as big of an issue going up north, because to me, that would be a logical case of everything with the point of access, especially in phase one, is towards that south entrance,
Yeah, it should
right
be
next to the
perfect
highway,
sense.
yeah.
Any other questions or comments from the council?
I think one of my concerns is being one of the people that lives out in Ridge Run, so I do know how they feel about this and understand, and we were part of the problem, I get it. And knowing that, we didn't know that when we moved there. That we were gonna create that problem, so I'm sorry. That wasn't our intent, it never was. We chose where we chose to live. But on the other hand, I know that, you know, there's probably, I don't know how many houses there are total on that portion of East Seward. But if we start rerouting it down Evergreen, there's a lot more houses along there that are gonna give us that same argument, and this place is gonna be even further packed. So whatever agreement we come to needs to be a mutual agreement and not just airing of grievances. We have to have steady motion on it.
Agreed.
Any other comments? Otherwise, we have a motion and a second to table this for 45 days.
I would amend that to 30.
And who seconded it? Did you want?
It was either Ellen or I, we
Are
said
we
it
okay
both
with
times, yeah.
Ellen on the
I
record
want it.
agree with So Ellen agrees with the
Yes.
amended motion. We motion in a second. Is there any further discussion from the council on this?
I'd just say that I think, based on Bob's timeline, we think we have plenty of time without it to delay this, to get something in place. So, I mean, that's all I can see at this point.
So again, motion is to table it. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please register your votes. Please display the votes.
Voting in favor, Beck, Camper, Coulterman, Singleton, Streisand, Hendricks. Voting against, Wilkin and Miller.
Alright. And just so you know, we did all the other items before this, so next we have is future requests for council agenda items or administrative action. Seeing none, Jonathan, welcome.
Yes. thank you
Upcoming
very much.
events.
Yes, very, very quickly. I'll pull it up. We had the meeting on February 17th for the Seward Downtown Revitalization Program. We're hoping to launch the application very, very soon. We'll be pushing that out in partnership with the City of Seward. And so would just ask everybody to be aware of that coming up. Our organization's continuing to facilitate the Zoom meetings on the last Thursday of the month about COVID-19 updates with Four Corners Health Department. And this month it'll be held Thursday, March 31st at 1. Saturday, April 23rd, and I do have a preliminary handout, so please don't distribute it, but just so you can see what we're planning to do. On Earth Day, to do the Seward County cleanup, as we have done in years past, 8 a.m. to noon. We're fortunate to have our hazardous waste grant. We really appreciate the partnership with the city that we've had on the South Columbia facility there, and of course a partnership with Four Corners as well. And then Thursday, April 28th, our organization's annual business anniversaries luncheon starting at 11:30 in the Civic Center basement. We'll be celebrating businesses' anniversaries from 5 years to 150 years and everything in between. So I'd encourage you to consider joining us. With that, that's all. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you, Jonathan. With that, I need a motion to adjourn.
Second.
A motion and a second, please register your votes. Please pay the votes.
Voting in favor, Wilkin, Beck, Camper, Coltman, Miller, Singleton, Streisand, Hendricks, 8-0.
Thank you all. Have a good night.
Okay.